The machine hissed one last time before falling completely silent. Lee Junwoo opened his eyes and smelled wet earth, burned wood, and something he couldn't identify. Perhaps the absence of everything he knew. The air entered his lungs heavy, different from the filtered and controlled air of Seoul in 2035. His knees touched the uneven ground of a narrow alley. In the distance, voices shouted in an ancient Korean he had studied for years, but which now sounded strange, almost aggressive. It was 1890, and he was completely alone. Junwoo rose slowly, hiding the small return device in the inner pocket of the hanbok he had worn before departing. 10 years of clandestine research, diverted resources, lies to colleagues and family, all for this moment. It wasn't a scientific experiment, it was desperation. In the historical records he had found by chance, there was a faded photograph of a woman named Han Soo-yeon, who died at 23 in a fire in the village of Jeonju. Something in those eyes captured by the primitive camera had haunted him for 5 years. He didn't believe in destiny, but he also couldn't explain the compulsion that had led him to build a time machine just to find her. The first days were a nightmare. Junwoo had no documents, no history. The village guards stopped him 3 times, suspicious of his modern accent and evasive answers. He slept in stables, ate scraps that merchants threw away, and quickly realized that theoretical knowledge hadn't prepared him for the brutal reality of late 19th century Korea. The Japanese occupation hadn't officially begun yet, but political tension already poisoned every conversation. Foreigners were feared, outsiders were rejected. It was in a chaotic market, among fabric stalls and vegetable baskets, that he saw her for the first time. Soo-yeon was carrying a bucket of water, her posture upright despite the weight, her face partially covered by a raw cotton scarf. She wasn't beautiful in the conventional sense. Her face was angular, her skin marked by small smallpox scars, her lips thin and always pursed in concentration. But when she stopped to help a child who had fallen, crouching without hesitation and cleaning the scraped knee with the hem of her own dress, Junwoo felt something break inside his chest. He followed her. Not with questionable intentions, but with the irrational certainty that he needed to be near her. Soo-yeon lived on the outskirts of the village, in a small house she shared with her sick grandmother. She worked as a seamstress and washerwoman, waking before dawn and sleeping late, her hands always occupied. Junwoo began frequenting the same places, observing from afar, until one day she confronted him. "You've been following me for a week," she said, her voice firm but not hostile. "If you want something, ask directly. If you're planning to harm me, know that I have a knife and I know how to use it." Junwoo felt his face burn. You need work. I heard you know the families in the region. I thought you could help me." Soo-yeon studied him with eyes that seemed to see through him. "You're not from here. You speak strangely, you dress like Yangbon, but act like a beggar. Who are you?" "Someone who made mistakes and needs to start over," he replied, and he wasn't lying completely. She observed him for another long moment before nodding. "You can carry firewood for my grandmother. I'll pay you with food." Thus began a precarious routine. Junwoo worked for Soo-yeon during the day, carried water, fixed the roof, helped with heavy tasks. At night he returned to the corner of an abandoned temple where he had set up an improvised camp. He knew he had to be careful. Any mention of the future, any technological slip could not only ruin his mission but put them both in danger. Superstition was strong. Outsiders had already been executed for less. But the more time he spent with Soo-yeon, the harder it became to maintain distance. She was resilient in a way Junwoo had never seen in his time. Not the performative resilience of social media, but the silent strength of someone who survived because she had no other option. She cared for her grandmother with unwavering devotion, even when the old woman no longer recognized her. She shared her scarce food with even poorer neighbors. She laughed rarely, but when she did, it was a genuine and transformative sound. "Why have you never married?" Junwoo asked one afternoon while they washed clothes together at the stream. The question came out before he could filter it. Soo-yeon didn't raise her eyes from the fabric she was scrubbing. "The men in the village want young and fertile wives. I'm old by their standards, and my grandmother is a burden. Besides, I was promised once. He died before the wedding. Now I carry bad luck." "That's absurd." "It's reality." She finally looked at him, one eyebrow arched. In your land, where you really come from, are things different? Junwoo froze. Why do you think I'm not from here? Because you look at the sky as if expecting to see something that isn't there. Because you're startled by simple things and aren't startled by things that should frighten you. Because you treat women as equals, which no decent Korean man would do. She paused. And because you look at me as if I were already dead. Junwoo's heart raced. Sooyeon. You don't need to tell me the truth, she interrupted, returning to the clothes. We all have secrets. Just don't lie saying you don't have any. That night, Junwoo lay awake, the return device weighing in his hands. He had come to save her. The fire would happen in 6 months, according to the records. But the more he knew her, the more he understood that saving her didn't just mean preventing her death. It meant taking her from the only world she knew. The following months brought dangerous proximity. Sooyeon began to trust him. To share thoughts she clearly had never told anyone. She spoke about the frustration of being invisible, of working to the bone, and still being treated as less than nothing for being a woman and poor. She spoke about dreams she had as a child, of learning to read, of traveling beyond the mountains, of choosing her own path. Do you think there's a place where women can live alone without being condemned? She asked one night, while they sewed together by candlelight. The grandmother slept in the next room, her breathing irregular. There is, Junwoo answered without thinking. In some places, women govern. They work as doctors, engineers, lead countries. They choose whether to marry or not. They choose their own lives. Sooyeon laughed, but it was a sad laugh. You tell beautiful stories, Junwoo, but they're just stories. What if they weren't? She stopped sewing and stared at him. Then I would say you're cruel for showing me something I can never have. The tension between them grew. Junwoo knew he was falling in love, not with the romantic idea he had built over 5 years, but with the real, complicated, and imperfect person that Sooyeon was. And she, slowly, was also opening up. Small touches that lasted longer than necessary, looks that said more than words, conversations that extended deep into the night. But reality was unforgiving. Sooyeon's grandmother died on a cold dawn, and grief brought new problems. Without her grandmother, Sooyeon was completely alone and vulnerable. Men from the village began making indecent proposals. The landlord threatened to evict her. And then came the rumors. Japan was increasing its military presence in the region. Armed conflicts were approaching. We need to leave here, Junwoo said one night, desperation making him reckless. You're not safe. And go where? Sooyeon retorted, exhaustion evident. I have no money, no family, nothing. You have me. The silence that followed was dense. Sooyeon looked at him as if trying to decipher an impossible puzzle. Who are you, Junwoo? Really? He took a deep breath. It was the moment. Either he trusted her completely, or he lost his only chance. I come from a different time, from a place where the stories I told are real. I came here to find you, to save you from something terrible that's going to happen. Sooyeon backed away, eyes wide. You're insane. I know how this sounds. Junwoo took the device from his pocket, the faint lights blinking. But it's true. In 4 months, there will be a fire. You're going to die. I read about it, saw records, and I couldn't live knowing I could have done something. She looked at the object in his hands, then back at his face. Are you a spirit? A demon? I'm just a man who made an enormous mistake thinking he could play with time. Sooyeon moved away, confusion giving way to fear. You need to leave. Now. Sooyeon, please. Go! Her voice cracked. I don't want to see you anymore. Junwoo left, his heart shattered. He had spent years idealizing that moment, but never considered that she wouldn't believe him, or worse, that she would believe and reject him anyway. He returned to his hiding place, desperate. Maybe he should just force her to come with him. Use the device and take her by force. But the idea disgusted him. That wasn't how he wanted to save her. That wasn't how he wanted to love her. 3 days later, Sooyeon appeared. She was pale, her eyes swollen from crying. Show me, she said simply. Junwoo took her to an isolated area in the forest. He activated the device, adjusting it for a minimal time jump, just 5 minutes ahead. The air around them began to vibrate, a bluish light briefly enveloping them before everything stabilized. When they looked around, they saw themselves still standing in the same place, 5 minutes in the past. Sooyeon fell to her knees, breathing rapidly. Junwoo supported her, waiting. When she finally looked at him, there was terror in her eyes, but also something more. You said I'm going to die. Yes, in a fire, but I can take you to a time where you'll be safe. And if I go, I can never come back, right? He nodded slowly. Most likely not. Sooyeon closed her eyes. My life here isn't worth much, but it's my life. My village, my language, my world. If I go with you, I'll become a stranger in a place I don't understand. I'll be as lost as you are here. But you'll be alive. Alive and alone. She opened her eyes, and Junwoo saw tears streaming down. Unless you stay. Junwoo felt the world tilt. Sooyeon, I can't. Why? You built a machine to go back in time, but you can't stay here with me, or am I not enough? It's not that. You don't understand what you're asking. I would have to abandon everything. My family, my life, all the technology and comfort I know. And don't you think I would have to do the same if I went with you? She shot back, her voice firm despite the tears. At least you know this time. I know nothing of your world. The logic was irrefutable, and Junwoo felt exposed. All this time, he had assumed she would be grateful to be saved, that she would follow without question. But Sooyeon wasn't a fairy tale princess waiting to be rescued. She was a woman with agency, opinions, and a refusal to be merely passive in her own story. I need time to think, he finally said. Sooyeon nodded. Then think fast. You said the fire is in 4 months. We don't have much time. The following weeks were agonizing. Junwoo constantly weighed the options. Returning to 2035 meant finding a life that no longer made sense to him, an empty apartment, a job that had consumed him, a loneliness that no professional achievement had filled. But staying in 1890 meant giving up everything familiar, any chance of return, of safety. And then came the news that changed everything. A group of insurgents had attacked a Japanese military post on the outskirts of the village. The retaliation was brutal. Japanese soldiers invaded the village, burning houses, arresting men, violating women. Junwoo and Sooyeon hid in the abandoned temple, hearing the screams in the distance. This is the world you want me to leave? Sooyeon whispered, clinging to him. A world where women are treated like this? My world isn't perfect, Junwoo replied, his voice hoarse. There's violence, inequality, suffering. But it's not this, not like this. Then take me. She looked at him, eyes determined. Take me where I can live without fear. Take me where I can be more than this. Junwoo felt the last resistances crumble. All right, let's go. They planned everything carefully. They would wait for the soldiers to withdraw, gather the bare minimum, and use the device in an isolated location. Junwoo reviewed the calculations several times, checking each component. Taking another person increased the risk, but it was technically possible. The night before departure, they lay together in the temple, unable to sleep. Sooyeon held his hand, intertwining fingers. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too. Do you think I'll adapt? That I'll be able to understand your world? I think you're stronger than you imagine, and I'll be with you. I'll teach you everything. What if you regret it? What if once there you realize you made a mistake? Junwoo turned to face her. Sooyeon, I spent 5 years obsessed with an image, an idea of who you were. And then I met the real you, and you're much more complicated and difficult and surprising than I imagined. You challenged me, questioned me, forced me to face truths about myself that I was avoiding. No, I won't regret it. She smiled for the first time in days. You talk too much, Junwoo. It's a modern flaw. They laughed softly, and then the laughter transformed into something more. Junwoo kissed her, and it was strange and perfect and completely imperfect at the same time. Her hands were rough from so much work, his body tense with fear and anticipation. But in that moment, in an abandoned temple at the end of the 19th century, they were just two people trying to find something good in a world that insisted on being cruel. Morning arrived cold and silent. They gathered Soo-yeon's few belongings: some clothes, a comb that had belonged to her mother, a small painting of her grandmother. Jun-woo programmed the device, his hands trembling slightly. 74 attempts before managing to make it work the first time, and now he depended entirely on it working perfectly once more. "Ready?" he asked. Soo-yeon took a deep breath, looking one last time at the village where she had grown up. Yes. Jun-woo activated the device. The bluish light enveloped them, more intense this time. The air began to vibrate, and then the world around them began to distort. Soo-yeon squeezed his hand hard enough to hurt. And then something went wrong. The device began emitting a high-pitched sound, the lights blinking erratically. Jun-woo looked at the display and felt his blood freeze. The calculations were incorrect. The additional weight had destabilized the system. They were trapped in a partial temporal loop, neither in the past nor in the future, but in a limbo between the two. "What's happening?" Soo-yeon screamed, her voice almost inaudible over the noise. "I don't know. The system is failing." Jun-woo desperately tried to readjust the settings, but his hands trembled so much he could barely touch the controls. Images began appearing around them, fragments of 1890 and 2035 overlapping, creating a distorted and nauseating reality. Soo-yeon fell to her knees, vomiting. "Turn it off. Turn it off!" she begged. But Jun-woo couldn't. Deactivating the device at that moment could shatter them through time, fragmenting their molecules across two different eras. The only option was to force it to complete the jump, even if that meant risking complete destabilization. He pressed the buttons in the emergency sequence he had never tested, praying it would work. The device screeched even louder, the light becoming blinding. Soo-yeon screamed. Jun-woo felt his body being pulled in impossible directions. And then, silence. Jun-woo opened his eyes slowly. Gray sky, skyscrapers, the constant hum of delivery drones. 2035. They had arrived. He turned quickly. Soo-yeon was lying beside him, motionless. "No, no, no." He shook her, checked her pulse. It was there, weak but steady. She was alive. When Soo-yeon finally woke up, she was in a hospital, something Jun-woo had to explain 10 times before she stopped panicking. The doctors examined her, confused by her malnutrition and old scars, but Jun-woo invented a story about her being an illegal immigrant from a war zone. It wasn't entirely a lie. The first weeks were a different nightmare. Soo-yeon couldn't process anything: the lights, the sounds, the speed at which everything happened. She had constant panic attacks, woke up screaming. Jun-woo realized, too late, the trauma he had caused by ripping her from her time. "I should have stayed," he said one night, while she stared out the apartment window, her eyes empty. "You were right. I should have stayed with you." Soo-yeon didn't respond immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm. "If you had stayed, we probably would have died together in the fire, or in the war that came after, or from hunger or disease." She turned to face him. "I don't regret coming, but I didn't expect it to be this hard." "We can go back," Jun-woo offered, even knowing the device was irreparably damaged. "We can try." "No." Soo-yeon shook her head. "There's no going back, and we both know it. So I need to move forward, but I'm going to need help." And she needed it. Months of therapy, updated language classes, adaptation to basic technologies. Jun-woo enrolled her in adult education programs, where she learned to read and write in modern Hangul. She was brilliant, absorbing knowledge with a hunger that surprised even the teachers. Slowly, Soo-yeon began to flourish. She discovered a passion for medicine, fascinated by the idea that diseases that killed in her time were now curable. She began working as a volunteer in clinics, then as a nursing assistant. She made friends, something Jun-woo had never truly managed. But the relationship between them changed. The dynamic they had in 1890, based on mutual dependence and extreme circumstances, didn't translate well to modern life. Soo-yeon began questioning decisions Jun-woo made for her, refusing his constant help. "You're not my savior," she said one day, after an argument about her wanting to live alone. You're someone who took me from a terrible situation and put me in a completely different one. I'm grateful for that, but I don't owe you my life." The words hurt, but Junwoo knew she was right. He had built a fantasy where he was the hero, and she the grateful damsel. Reality was much more complicated. They separated. It wasn't dramatic or painful. It was simply necessary. Sooyeon rented a small studio, began building an independent life. Junwoo saw her occasionally, for coffee or walks, but they maintained respectful distance. And then, 2 years after they had arrived, Sooyeon appeared at his apartment in the middle of the night. It was raining, and she was soaked, her eyes shining. "I passed the exam," she said, her voice trembling. "I was accepted into nursing school. I'll be able to help people for real. I'll be able to do something that matters." Junwoo felt his chest tighten. "Sooyeon, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you." She entered, closing the door. "None of this would have happened without you, and I know I was harsh, that I pulled away. But I needed to discover who I was here, in this world, without being just the woman you saved. I understand. I discovered I still love you," she continued, her voice firm. "But now I love you for real, not because you took me from there, but because I see you. I see someone who made a gigantic mistake for selfish reasons, but who also gave me the chance to be more than I ever could have been." Junwoo stepped forward, hands trembling. "I love you too, and I'm sorry it took me so long to understand that you never needed to be saved. You were always strong enough on your own." They kissed there, in the apartment entrance, and it was completely different from that first time in the temple. It was a kiss between equals, between two people who had crossed the impossible and emerged transformed. But the story doesn't end with a perfectly wrapped ending. They didn't marry immediately, didn't pretend everything was resolved. Instead, they built something new, slowly. Sooyeon continued her studies, eventually specializing in trauma care. Junwoo completely destroyed the time machine plans, refusing to allow anyone else to make the same mistake. They moved in together again, but this time with clear rules, mutual respect, understanding that love doesn't mean completeness or dependence. Sooyeon maintained her own space, her own friendships, her own life. And Junwoo learned to do the same. 5 years later, on a quiet morning, Sooyeon woke up and looked out the window. The city hummed outside, familiar now in a way she never thought possible. She turned and watched Junwoo still sleeping beside her. His face relaxed. It wasn't the fairy tale ending people imagined. There were no absolute certainties, no promises they would last forever. But there was something better than that. There was choice. She chose to be there, every day, not because she was obligated or because she had no other options, but because she genuinely wanted to. And when Junwoo woke up and saw her smiling, he knew that of all the impossible things he had done in his life, the most important wasn't building a time machine. It was learning to let someone be free and discovering that, even so, she would choose to stay. "Good morning," Sooyeon said, running her hand through his hair. "Good morning," he replied, pulling her closer. "Ready for another day in this strange future?" She laughed and the sound filled the room. "Always. As long as you're here to remind me how to operate the coffee maker." And so, in an apartment in Seoul in the year 2040, two people separated by 150 years found something that transcended time. Not the perfect love of stories, but the real and imperfect love of two souls who decided, despite everything, that they were worth fighting for each other. The return device, destroyed and irreparable, remained stored in a drawer, not as a symbol of regret, but as a reminder that some journeys, however impossible they may be, are worth every second of uncertainty.